Well, good morning. So I am opting to record my birth story and most of my birth story, and also um, how I worked through labor, how I got to having a home birth. Because I think there's a lot of curiosity as well as fear and lack of understanding of what a home birth can look like. So we're just going to sit and have some coffee and chat. I don't really know exactly where or how this video is going to go, so bear with me. But I thought it was important to record. As a first-time mom, I actually had not been planning on being able to have kids. So when we found out we were pregnant, our world was kind of flipped upside down because God is awesome and works in those ways, I guess. It's so cool. So we had actually been referred to infertility long before we became pregnant and chose to never go that route. So when I found out I was pregnant, it was a very big surprise. We were so overwhelmed and grateful. And we were in the mix of still seeing a lot, not necessarily the shutdowns, but the restrictions going on when we started trying to decide where we were going to have our baby. So actually, the day I found out I was pregnant, I texted my best friend and asked her who her OB was, because I was at that point of like, I didn't even know where I was going to go. So I actually went to our local hospital and honestly had a fairly good experience. I really liked the OB that we had started working with, but something just didn't seem 100% of what we wanted. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office and them just saying, "Congratulations, do you have any questions?" And my mind just felt so overwhelmed. Like I didn't even know what questions to ask. And so I felt like it was congratulations, move on, go on with your life, and we're going to have a baby someday. And I wanted to know more than that. I wanted somebody to ask me the questions, and somebody, obviously our OB knew pregnancy, but I didn't. I hadn't done my studying because I didn't think I needed to. So that's where the curiosity kind of started. Okay, so then I have a few friends who have had a home birth. And I'm sorry, there is a fly in here that is driving me nuts. So I have a few friends who have had home births, and so the curiosity has always been there, but I had always thought about maybe someday having a home birth, but it wasn't going to be my first, because that's scary, right? Who's going to have a home birth on their first baby, especially when you know nothing? Like, I'm not a nurse. I'm a chemist, and now I'm a farmer. So why on earth would I know anything about having a baby at home? So if you don't already know this, finding a midwife, especially where we live, is not easy. It's not something you can just Google and it like pops up because, well, it's kind of like hush hush. And not because they want it to be, because the system wants it to be. So know that, like, it's kind of hard. So I had a friend who had a home birth locally. I should say more of like an acquaintance, like not a really good friend that I was just gonna text her and ask her all the questions, or at least I didn't feel like I could at that point. Now I probably could. I've gotten a lot more confidence in myself through this process. But anyways, so I remembered she had shared who her doula was. Now I want to tell you guys the extent to what I knew about birth in general. I legit asked my doula when I first talked to her, I said, "Can you deliver a baby, or who do I need to have there?" And looking back now, I'm like, oh my goodness, did I really ask that? But I didn't know. And I want to share that because like I want you to know how green I was. Like I didn't even know who could deliver a baby, especially in my home. So, I mean, I knew I could, like if I really wanted to, but who should I have there, I guess you should say. So I had found this friend of mine's doula and contacted her and asked her for a list of midwives in my area, which is how we ended up with getting in contact with New Birth Midwifery. And so we set up a consult. I told my husband, I said, I have to meet with them. I feel like I really just need to know if this is a door that I need to open or if I need to close it right now and just move on. So we had a meeting with them, and instantly, as soon as we left the consult, now mind you, this consult was an hour and a half long and we paid nothing for it. So after that consult, we walked out of the office and my husband and I both looked at each other and said, this is the route that we need to go. All of our questions were answered. And not only that, we felt like it was a place where we could openly ask the hard questions. We had no fear of rocking the boat or asking the wrong questions or being kind of put on a list for asking certain questions. So we felt very, very confident in that. And without even us asking, the midwife that we met with, Sarah, was able to put our hearts at ease instantly for the things that were just uneasy in our hearts and in our minds, that we felt God was kind of trying to pull us away from, or get us out of the things that were concerning us. So that is how we first met our midwives. So this video is going to get way longer than I thought it was going to, so bear with me. So just to share a few of the details of what midwifery care looks like in pregnancy, at least our midwifery care looked like. So we hired our midwives and we hired our doula, so that I knew that I had the support I needed and the knowledge I needed in our house when baby was ready to come. And I will tell you, I told nobody, except for very few that I knew were going to be 100% supportive. So that is one of my biggest, I guess you could say, tips if you're thinking about having a home birth, is really protect your headspace. Don't allow there to be negative thoughts, negative people that know, and you will feel a lot more confident, and you just won't have to wrestle those pieces. Okay, so our midwifery care, what did it look like? Same appointment schedules as I would have had in the hospital, except for instead of 10-minute appointments, my appointments were an hour long every single time at minimum. Unless I wanted them to be shorter, I could have. But I was gifted an hour of their time every single appointment. And I say gifted because if you don't know this, midwifery care is far cheaper than going through the hospital system. And with that being said, it's way cheaper. And our sharing group, actually, our Christian sharing group, we use Christian Health Ministries. They covered our midwifery care. Now you have to check with your insurance company whether or not they will. But anyways, I say gifted because it was far cheaper and we got so much more. So we got so much more. So our appointments look the same, or I should say the same schedule. Our appointments did not look the same as being in the hospital, because they really made sure how I was doing mentally, physically, emotionally, even like spiritually, if that was my choice, to discuss those things with my midwife. And so they made sure that I and baby were doing well all around. And I would say I can't really tell you. Obviously, I hadn't been through all the appointments at the hospital. But basically, I got there, we chatted a lot, went through all the things that I should need to know at that point in pregnancy. And they would measure me or measure baby, and then check for a heartbeat and check my vitals. And that was pretty much it. So appointments were always really, really great. Everything was very much of my choice in what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. I never felt forced into doing anything. So then as we got closer to time for baby to be here, they did a home visit, and I believe they typically do that at 36 weeks. We did ours a little bit early because we were going into harvest. So I was going to be very busy. Andrew was going to be very busy. So we wanted to make sure that we had everything set and in place before that. So I would say we probably did our home visit at like 34 weeks. And they actually drive to your house and come and help you decide, where, if you want to have a water birth, where would be the best place to put the birth pool. Just make sure of where they can, kind of set up their stuff and their needs, where they'll transfer you to once you have baby, like you're into your bed, and make sure how you're going to be comfortable and just kind of get to know the space. So they did that. And then, that kind of leads up to our actual birth story. So all week long, leading up to my due date, or my guest date, you can say, I don't know. And actually it was the day that Brooklyn was born. So, leading up to that day, I would ask Andrew every day, do you think we're gonna have a baby tonight? Do you think we're gonna have a baby tonight? And the night I went to bed before she was born, I said, there's no way we're gonna have a baby tonight. I am exhausted, because we had family over all day long. And at my appointment that week, just a couple days before, they had checked and baby had not dropped, and they said probably another week before I would have her or him. At that point, I didn't know. So, but that night I went to bed and things felt a little different. I remember thinking baby might have dropped. I almost feel like I have to cross my legs in bed. So but I just went to bed because I wasn't gonna have a baby that night. So then I slept until 1:15 a.m. and I woke up and I was like, oh man, I think I'm having contractions. And so I woke Andrew up and I said, I think I'm having contractions. I'm gonna time them. And so I started timing my contractions, and only a few were 5 minutes apart, and then they very quickly were getting less and less. So at 2:30, I believe it was, I called my doula and our on-call midwife, and we kind of discussed where we were at, and they decided that soon it was going to be time to come our way. So my doula got here at 5:30 in the morning, and my midwife was here at 6:02. For some reason, I have that very specifically. That was the time she got here. I think because I was laboring in the living room on a labor ball, and I looked up at the clock, and that's what I remember seeing. So in sharing this, I want to share what our home birth story is like, because I think we hear so many horror stories, because people want to make home birth sound scary, that we don't hear the beautiful ones. I remember being asked after Brooklyn was born by our midwives and our doula, how do you feel like birth went? How, tell me what you're feeling after this. And I was like, I feel like it went awesome. It was great. It was textbook. Why are you asking me? But now looking back and looking at so many situations and so many births and so many birth stories that I've listened to, I can see why they were always asking me. They wanted to make sure that I was confident in how our birth went. And so anyways, Okay, so I started laboring in the living room, and I mean, I had 13 hours of labor, so obviously I'm not going to go through every detail of labor, but it was a lot of, I started laboring in the living room on my hands and knees. I mean, when I was in early labor, or I shouldn't even say it was early labor because I probably had a lot of labor in my sleep but didn't know it. But from the point that I got up, um, I my husband was setting up the birth pool. I was changing the sheets on our bed. Um, but every time I got a contraction, I was dropping to my hands and knees because they were very strong from the very beginning. So this is the point that I want to say too, is that obviously labor pain is far more than anything you'll ever experience. It's far different than anything you'll ever experience, and you do have the strength to get through it. I remember thinking partway through labor, I'm never doing this again. I don't know how I'm going to make it through this. But in doing that, you make it through with breathing through every contraction. Just make it to the next one. And honestly, I can't say that it felt like I had 13 hours of labor. I don't feel like we went through 13 hours. Like, I remember my husband asking if he could go make something to eat. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, do you need to eat right now? And not realizing that it had been that long. I never looked at a clock, really. I maybe did a couple times, but I really avoided it, honestly. And I think my birth team helped me in that. So I labored, like, walking around our house, using the labor ball, doing different leans and stretches. I labored on the, like, sitting backwards on our toilet for a long time. That's a super comfortable place to labor. I thought my doula was crazy when she told me that I should do that when we went through our birth class, but it was by far one of the best places. I laid in bed, I got in the birth pool, I got out of the birth pool. I did have 2 cervical checks, but I did not have my midwives tell me how far along I was. But I just wanted their reassurance that I was making progress, which they knew I was. But that was by my choice. I never had to if I didn't want to. I threw up probably 4 times at least, and my midwives would just tell me that every time you threw up, you dilated further, so I just didn't care that I threw up and just continued on. I had no source of pain management outside of, like, natural pain management of moving and music and hip squeezes and things like that, a little massage. But I very much remember, like, now looking back, going through transition, because I was like, my husband started playing music and I just burst into tears. And then I had gotten back in the birth pool, and that's when my water broke. And it was 1:48 in the afternoon, my water broke. And she was born at 2:17 in the afternoon. So basically when my water broke, I started pushing. And that was a cool thing about going through home birth and labor at home. My midwives would ask me, and my doula would ask me, like, do you feel pushy yet? Do you feel pushy yet? Do you think you're ready to push yet? And I was always, I was like, I don't know, like, kind of. I mean, yeah, I feel like a lot of pressure, but I don't know. And they're like, okay. But then once my water broke in the birth pool, I knew it was time to push. So it was really cool experience of just getting to experience it as my body was ready and wanting to birth my baby. So yeah, there was just no, I actually feel like I didn't see my midwives a lot through labor. My doula and my husband were always by my side. But they were just kind of in the background observing. Obviously they definitely checked, they monitored baby throughout the whole process. And that's something, that was something else that I wanted to touch on here too, is that So people think you're going like completely rogue when you have a home birth. No. My midwives are certified, and I had to be a low risk pregnancy. They monitored baby throughout labor. And we had like non-emergent and emergent transfer plans to a hospital. All those things were in place. So it's not like you're going completely crazy. Like, that's the thing that drives me nuts, is people think you're totally crazy. I promise you, I'm smarter than that. You can think what you want. So those pieces were all in place. So I didn't have fear of anything happening, and because I knew that we knew what was going to happen if we did have to do something, and the Lord was in complete control. That is the biggest thing. The Lord is in complete control, and I can worry about a lot of things. I was not worried about having a baby at home. Crazy. But it's because it was of the Lord to go through the process we did. We waited on him to provide us his baby. I could have gone through infertility. I probably could have had a baby a lot earlier. Maybe. But this was the Lord's will all the way through. So now I don't even remember where I was at. But I started pushing, and within a half hour, she was here. I had very minor tearing, and only because I didn't want to really wait any longer once her head was through to continue pushing. And I don't know, I just had very minimal tearing, but I had that stitched here by my choice. And then obviously we had delayed cord clamping and all of that. They transferred me and baby and my placenta to my bed, where Andrew was able to cut the cord. And when we were ready for that, it was just so beautiful. Like, it was amazing. And I don't know, I remember thinking partway through, like, I could never do this again. This is so hard, because it is. And now I would do it over and over and over again. Like, looking back, how amazing. Like, our Lord has created women to do this miraculous thing, to bring new life into this world. And the fact that we are so afraid of it is so hard for me. Like, there shouldn't be fear in it. There should not be fear in bringing new life into this world. So I guess that was my point in doing this video, is just to share the beauty of birth and to encourage you that you can do it. It is hard, and it's amazing. So there's lots of different ways that you can make it through labor. You can do it at your home. My midwives were there, but in the background, allowing us to just go through labor, and they weren't trying to get me out of labor faster, and that's what I think was really cool. They were allowing my body to go through the process, and I think that just was amazing. It was beautiful. So I guess that's what I can think of that I want to share right now. Maybe I'll do a part 2 to this video, or maybe I'll completely redo it when more comes to my mind. But that's our birth story, and I just hope that more people can experience that. So, bye-bye.